غرباء 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 غرباء
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the feature session is meant to be very lighthearted, and I want to share an experience with you that happened just yesterday. I'm sure most of you have never heard of racist elevators, but I witnessed it yesterday. So yesterday, before we come to the Masjid, Sheikh Sajid and I were in the elevator from level 8, and it's taking us down all the way to level number 2, and it stops at level number 2, and it will not move. So we're waiting, we're pressing the buttons, and it's still not moving. And then the elevator says, exit the elevator now. So we're like, okay, what's going on here? We exit the elevator, press the button, we take another elevator and go down. Now we were thinking, that's the end of the story. We come to the Masjid, everything's fine. But lo and behold, last night, we prayed Salat al-Maghrib, we went back. We have our food with us. And this time, Sheikh Ala is with us as well. We climb up one floor, we get to the second floor again, and the elevator stops again. And again, the elevator goes, get out of the elevator now. So I was like, subhanAllah, what is wrong with this elevator? And, it was just like the worst case of racism I've ever faced, Allah understand. It wasn't even from a human being, it was from an elevator. But alhamdulillah, ala kulli hal. Now my feature session, what I want to discuss with you, bidhnillahi ta'ala, is something very lighthearted, but at the same time, something I hope you will find beneficial as well. And that is my journey to the Islamic University of Medina. How I actually got into the Islamic University of Medina. What ended up happening was I was about 16 years old, and I'd started taking Arabic classes at that time. It was in the heart of the city, and we used to travel for about an hour and a half just to get to these classes. So after 2 years or so, I met a lot of brothers who mashallah, who are on the deen, they were practicing, and they had very high aspirations. At that time, I had never heard of the Islamic University of Medina. But there was a brother who, mashallah, he knew quite a few brothers who were at the university, and this was something he was aspiring to do. So by that time, this brother had gotten his driver's license, and rather than us, taking the bus and the metro to downtown, he would now give the younger brothers rides. So I remember one day he was giving us a ride to the class, and he says, after the class, I'm not going to be going home, so you may want to find your own way back. So I asked him, what are you going to do? He says, there's some people who have come from the Islamic University of Medina, and they want to go to apply. So I said, okay, you know what? Rather than, spending money, as a student, you're quite tight on money. I'll just wait for you to finish. So I went with him to the interview. We finished our Arabic class, we go to this interview, and literally it's in a tiny warehouse. So for example, you could maybe fit about 50 people in this room, and it's extremely congested. Now what was really interesting about this was I had no idea of what was actually going on. So you walk into the Masjid and there's a brother standing there, he has like a notepad and he's writing people's names down. So I walk into the Masjid and he's like, brother, what's your name? I'm like, Naved Aziz. So I sit down and I was like, that was a bit strange, but it's still not too bad. So I'm sitting down, just reading Quran, and then all of a sudden, there's a guy in a shimagh, he comes out and he's like, Naved Aziz, where is he? And, I'm like, that's me. He's like, come inside. So I go inside, and he's like, have a seat. And I sit down, and he starts asking me a whole bunch of random questions. He's like, how much Quran have you memorized? What ahadith do you know? Who are the major scholars of our times? And I remember him asking me about 17 questions on fiqh. Simple basic stuff that you would think the average Muslim should know, but unfortunately I didn't. It's like, what are the arkan of salah? And I have like, salah has arkan? I had no idea. And out of those 17 questions, I know for a fact that I got 13 of them wrong. And then as time is going on, I have no idea what on earth is still going on at this time. What's clicking in my mind is the only people who write your name down and get you to volunteer for things was the Jamaat al-Tabligh. So I'm thinking to myself, man, this is some serious Jamaat al-Tabligh interview going on, because I wasn't interested in applying to the Islamic University of Medina. So the interview finishes, and I go back outside, and I speak to the brother who brought me there, Ahmad. I'm like, bro, these are some like militant tabligis, man. This guy like took my whole life history, asked me the fiqh questions, asked me aqidah questions, asked me about scholars. What on earth is going on? He's like, bro, you're not going on Jamaat now. You signed up for the Islamic University of Medina. I'm like, but I didn't want to do that. So qaddar Allah, it finishes up. And as we're finishing up, we're getting ready to leave, and the brother who did the interview, he comes back and he's like, your interview is not complete. You haven't filled out an application form or given me any pictures. So I said, look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really interested in applying for the university. So he's like, look, I'll fill out the application for you, just get me the pictures. So I went to the local metro station, you put in a $2 coin, and you sit on this ugly looking chair that has like an orange background. And it took 4 pictures of me, and I gave it to the brother. And then lo and behold, 9 months later, one of the craziest events in my life happens. I'm finishing up college at that time, and I come home, and there are balloons in my house. There's like streamers, all the lights are on, and there are like a whole bunch of people at my house. So I walk in, and I'm like, Assalamu alaikum, Ammi, what's happening? I'm like, we haven't celebrated my birthday in like 20 years. Why are we doing it now? And she's like, we're not here to celebrate your birthday. I'm like, khalas, so why is everyone here? She's like, go upstairs and you'll find out. I go upstairs, and lying on my bed is this like torn up, filthy looking brown envelope that has my name misspelled on it. And literally you can see like coffee droppings on it. So the person who had this letter spilled coffee on it. And I look at it, and it's like, Mubarak, you've been accepted to the Islamic University of Medina. And I'm like, this has to be a mistake. I did not want to go. So I call up that brother who took me, Ahmad, and this was his 3rd time applying to the university. I'm like, Ahmad, did you get a letter from the university? And he's like, no, I didn't. And then Ahmad ignored me for 3 days. I used to pick him up for Salatul Fajr. He used to come into my car and not give me salams. He thought I pulled like some sort of trick, to get into the university. So now what was happening at that time, I was finishing up, university at that time, and it's a dilemma. I want to pursue further education. I have a scholarship in MIS. What do I do? Do I go to the Islamic University of Medina, or do I continue, with furthering education, something that I've already started up and I wanted to finish? And I had a serious conversation with my mom, and this was probably the turning point that, mashallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her, that convinced me to go to the Islamic University of Medina. So we sit down, and I'm like, look, I have a decision to make here. I can either go to Medina, or I can, continue my education over here. What do you advise me to do? She broke it down like this. She's like, how many people in this world, apply and struggle to study MIS, which is Management of Information Systems? And I'm like, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And she's like, how many of those people actually get in? And I'm like, probably hundreds and thousands, if not millions. She's like, okay, how about the Islamic University of Medina? How many people apply? And I was like, thousands. And she goes, how many of them actually get in? And I said, only a handful. And she's like, do you really have a decision to make right now? Or is the answer clear in front of your face? Now, I hadn't thought of it like that. I didn't consider being accepted into the Islamic University of Medina as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just considered it another pathway that I could have taken. But when my brother broke it down for me like that, it turned out to be one of the biggest, best blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is where my journey just begins to the Islamic University of Medina. It gets more interesting. So if you've ever dealt with the Saudi embassy, you'll realize that, mashallah, tabarakallah, while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed that country with Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not blessed them with any organizational skills. While applying for my visa, they asked for my passport. So I went and I gave them my passport, and each week I'm following up, and they're like, brother, what's your name? What's your passport number? What does it look like? And I'm like, do you guys still have my passport? And then around the 3rd week, he's like, look, brother, I'll be honest with you. I remember you coming to give it to me, but I have no idea what happened to it. So I'm like, subhanAllah, this is my passport. I can't travel without it. So eventually, this is a true story. The guy found a set of passports. Do you know what they did with it? The table was tipsy-topsy, meaning one of the corners of the table was broken. So they took a set of passports, put it underneath so the table would stay stable. And I was like, may Allah guide you. What's wrong with you? So eventually they found my passport, and alhamdulillah, I'm on my way to the Islamic University of Medina. So now I arrive in Jeddah. It's been a 14-hour direct flight from New York City to Jeddah airport, direct flight. I get to Jeddah extremely tired. No one told me it's going to be this hot, this humid. And I go to get my boarding pass for Medina at this time. And the brother goes, he's like, look, you have a 6-hour wait, just chill in the lounge and wait for your flight to come. So I wait 6 hours, really tired, really exhausted. I finally go to, board the plane, and I get to the exit, and I show him my boarding pass, and he's like, I'm sorry to inform you, but we've given your seat away. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. In North America and anywhere in the West, you have a boarding pass, that is your seat. You're getting onto the plane. And then there was a brother, who was witnessing what was going on. I'm getting angry and frustrated. He's like, let me guess, you're new to the country. I'm like, yeah, I am new. He's like, he probably gave it away to one of his cousins or something like that. And I was like, I see. So he's like, go downstairs, get a new boarding pass, get on to the next flight. I go downstairs, I try to get a boarding pass for the next flight, which is 9 hours later. The brother, mashallah, he seemed like a sincere brother. He says, why don't you just take the bus to Medina? So I was like, okay, khalas, I'll take the bus to Medina. So I cancel my ticket, I get to the bus station, I take a bus to Medina, and I arrive in Medina. I go to the airport now to pick up my luggage because it was to be transferred directly. Lo and behold, my luggage was still in Jeddah. So I pray Salatul Fajr at the Masjid University, and I am about to register for the university. I go to the administration, I'm like, Assalamu alaikum, my name's Naveed Aziz, I was accepted from Canada. And they're like, that's very nice, but do you have any proof of documentation? Where's your letter of acceptance? And I tell them everything that happened. My luggage is still in Jeddah, and it's inside my luggage, and hopefully when I get it, I'll give it to you. But in the meantime, can I please just have a place to stay, a place to shower? And he's like, look, while I would love to do this for you, I don't really know if it's you or not. And I'm like, here's my passport. And he's like, sorry, that doesn't mean anything to me. So I spent the next 4 nights sleeping in the masjid of the university, staying in the exact same clothes, not being able to take a shower. And in the heat, you can imagine what it's like. So 4 days go by, and it becomes the day of Jummah. I was like, I have to take a shower on the day of Jummah somewhere. So I'm looking around, is there any place I can take a shower? And there wasn't. So, I just went to the bathroom, made wudu, and I went for Salatul Jummah. But this ended up being a big turning point in my life, because we prayed Salatul Jummah, and then as I'm walking outside, I had these, mashallah, tabarakallah, Allah's blessed me with big feet. So you could tell which ones were my shoes. And on top of that, I had these basketball shoes. I'm not sure if anyone remembers Allen Iverson or not, but back from the 90s, he was a good player. So he had these shoes which were pretty big, and you could tell that this person's from the West. So I'm putting these shoes on, and this short little man comes up to me. He's like, Salaam alaikum, Ak. I'm like, Wa alaikum salam. He's like, where are you from? I go, I'm from Montreal, Canada. Yeah, I'm like, what's your name? He's like, what's your name? I'm like, my name's Naveed Aziz. And this is like the first person that's actually making like conversation with me properly. So I'm like, mashallah, brother, what's your name? And he goes, it's Yasser Qadi. And I think to myself, you can't be the same Yasser Qadi that's been writing these books. And I just bought his book on Ulum al-Quran at that time. And I'm like, this really can't be you. I'm like, bro, you're so short, you're so small. Is it really you? And he's like, yeah, it's really me. And, alhamdulillah, he took me out for my first real meal in Medina. We prayed Jummah. We went out, we had some nice biryani on the streets of Medina. And that is where our relationship, began, mashallah. He was a very helpful brother to me during my days in Medina. And mashallah, he was a good mentor. And alhamdulillah, that was the beginning of my days in Medina. Now, all of this transpired and happened, and I learned the most valuable lesson as I was graduating from Medina. I was preparing my course on Sahih al-Bukhari at that time, which I teach for AL-MAGHRIB. And one of the hadith that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah mentions inside Sahih al-Bukhari is about the residents of Medina. He mentions inside Sahih al-Bukhari that people who want to reside in Medina and live in Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test them with trials. He will test them with trials to purify them, because it is only the purest of people that will be able to live in Medina. Now my point in mentioning all of this is that people go to Medina and they want to aspire to go to Medina, and they think it's going to be a very easy journey, that they'll be able to go there, it's going to be very comfortable, they'll be able to sit at the feet of the scholars, and they'll get an Islamic education. But I will be honest with you, it is probably one of the most difficult experiences you will ever face. The life of a student of knowledge is someone who does not have a lot of money. He is someone who is not able to interact with his family regularly. He is someone who has to leave a lot behind in hopes of getting a lot in the future. And that was the life of a student of knowledge. Now, a lot of brothers, they come up to me and ask me, is there anything that I can do to help, increase my chances to get into the Islamic University of Medina? I think you would have learned by now that, at the Islamic University of Medina, it's not about how hard you try, it's not about what you do. But eventually what it comes down to is one of two things. Either you have someone on the inside who's helping you out, or you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on your side. For me, it was the latter. I know I had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on my side, because no matter how hard I tried to escape the Islamic University of Medina, I couldn't do it. Allah had destined it for me. And I want to conclude this portion of my discussion with the story of how I left Medina. So I finally graduated from Medina, and everything is fine and dandy. But the final procedure you have to go through is that before they give you your passport to leave, you have to go and pick up your certificate. So now, I'm going to pick up my certificate, and the brother who's with his calligraphy, he's writing in my name on the certificate. Allah knows best, but he's mentally challenged, this brother. And what ended up happening was, I kept on telling him my name is Naved Aziz. So he's like, how do you write this in Arabic? And I'm like, it's very easy. You take a noon, you take a fa, you take a dal, ya and a dal, and it's nafid. It's not naved, but it's nafid. It's the closest thing. He's like, yeah, but that's not accurate. So he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to type yours up instead. So now, in modern day Arabic, they've actually introduced new letters into the language. The letters that we learn in the madaris, in the madrasas over here, they don't have the letter V. But they've actually introduced it in modern day Arabic now. So this brother, he sees it that the new way of writing V in the Arabic language is that you have a fa with 3 dots. So this brother's looking around on the keyboard, and he's like, I see the fa with 1 dot, I see the qaf with 2 dots, but where is the fa with 3 dots? So he's drinking his tea, eating his dates, having a good time. He's like, khalas, if I can't find the 3 dots, let me just put the 2 dots. So now it says Naqid Aziz. And Naqid, it means contradiction or someone that has been opposed. So he's like, here's your certificate, have a nice flight. It was nice meeting you. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? I can't take this back. So for a journey of a month, for a duration of a month, I kept going in and out, in this brother's office. He's like, Ta'al bukra, come tomorrow, and inshallah you'll get it. For 1 month, I kept doing this. Then finally, at the end of literally 28 or 29 days, I go back to him, and he's like, I have some good news for you. I got someone to do it for you. And I'm like, Allahu Akbar. And at that time, tears started coming down my eyes. And a lot of people think that the reason why tears came down my eyes at that time, because I finally graduated and I'm leaving Medina. But I'll tell you the real reason. The real reason why I had tears in my eyes that day was because I was so happy I'd never have to see this man again. Purely, I couldn't stand this man, subhanAllah. And, a lot of the times, you think about victory, honest to God, that, 7 years I spent in Medina was not as challenging as dealing with this one man in that last month, subhanAllah. Like every day I'd have to come, it's about a 25-minute journey from my apartment in the burning heat. I'd come there for literally 10 seconds. I'm like, is it ready? He's like, no, come back tomorrow. And then I'd have to go back and I'd have nothing to do. So that was a big challenge. And that is how my time in Medina concluded. So I want to conclude now by giving advice to the brothers who are aspiring to go to Medina bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. First of all, I would advise all of my young brothers to develop themselves into students of knowledge. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted you youth and He's granted you potential. So you can do a lot with that potential. And one of the best things you can do with your life is seeking knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with all of the trials, with all of the tribulations, even till this very time today, I say as a fact that there's no university that is as great and as blessed as the Islamic University of Medina, just due to the mere fact that it's authentic knowledge and you have the Masjid of the Prophet ﷺ there. So I would say the brothers who are interested in seeking knowledge, make it an aspiration to go there. Number 2, is that preparation of Medina does not start once you get your boarding pass and your visa to go. Preparation of going to Medina, it starts from today. It starts from memorizing the Quran. It starts from learning the Arabic language. It starts from waking up in the middle of the night and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It starts from preparing yourself to have this mentality of being ready, of being tested and tried. And if you can do that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will facilitate it for you. The third thing I would mention is benefit from the people of knowledge in your own town before you go overseas and try to benefit from the people over there. Because if you're not able to benefit from the people in your own town, you'll not be able to benefit from the people overseas. This was the methodology of our predecessors, that they would exhaust the resources that they have in their own communities, and then after that, they would begin to travel. So if you become a student of knowledge here in the city of Birmingham or here somewhere in England, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, you will be able to become a true student of knowledge when you go to the Islamic University of Medina. And the last thing I would mention is never give hope. Never give up hope in being accepted. You know, a lot of people, they apply once, they don't get in, they're like, khalas, I'm not going to bother going. I know brothers who got accepted at the Islamic University of Medina at the age of 39 years old. A brother from China. Literally, he was 39 and I was 18 or 19 at that time. He was double my age. And I thought to myself, subhanAllah, how did this guy get here? And he just said, look, from the age of like 25 or something, he just kept applying. 14 years later, he got accepted. And I thought to myself, Allahu Akbar. This is the value of putting in hard work, the value of putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will facilitate it for you. Now I'm supposed to, open up the floor for discussion. If brothers want to discuss anything, you want to ask me anything on a personal level, I'm supposed to open up the floor for that. So that's what I'll do bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. If anyone has any questions on Medina, anyone has any questions on funny experiences I had, or any other questions you may have, I'll open up the floor for that, inshallah. Go ahead. Any advice for the sisters that want to attend the university? Good question. During my time, they didn't even have the thought of opening up a branch for sisters at the Islamic University of Medina. But within the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk of, the current day chairman of the university to open up a sisters branch. And they're saying that within the next 2 to 3 years, a sisters branch actually will be available. Now, the general conditions will still be the same, that they will have to be under 25. They would have had to have good grades, no criminal records, things like that. But they have the added condition of they have to have a mahram with them. So either a brother, a father, an uncle, or even a husband. Now, this having been said, I would not advise the sisters to wait that long. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened up doors of goodness and doors of seeking knowledge in many other places. So start with there first and then move your way up to that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So for the time being, the sisters should be studying in her very own community. Likewise, if she's unable to leave her house for various reasons, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has even facilitated education online. We know that Sheikh Asim al-Hakim and Sheikh Sajid, they both teach for KIU, Knowledge International University, someone that I used to teach for as well back in the day. So I know it's a very good program, and they can definitely start over there. Likewise, Abu Amina Bilal Phillips, he started up a new free university where you only pay for your final examinations. That's the Islamic Online University. So start off with something like that, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala work your way up, towards going overseas. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not will for this sister to get accepted into Medina, there are still other doors for her. The University of al-Qura in Mecca is a fantastic university. She should apply there as well. And even after all of that, if she's unable to get in over there, then mashallah, tabarakallah, one of the best programs I've seen for sisters is in Egypt. Either with Al-Fajr Institute or Al-Qurtuba Institute, or other than them, sisters can go there with their maharim, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala still benefit over there. And I believe this is a void in the sisters' side, is that, I always hear of sisters complaining, why is it that we don't have female speakers? Why is it that we don't have, sisters giving lectures and things like that? And I always answer them with this simple question, is that when the sisters show themselves worthy, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala they can organize their own conferences, they can do their own durus, they can do all of that. But the reality is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the woman in such a way that her lifestyle is completely different for the vast majority of women. Because as they get older, they get married, they start having children, they start having other responsibilities. So I would say that the sisters need to take advantage of their youth before they get married, before they start having kids. Seek as much knowledge as you can. Start giving da'wah to the sisters, and this bidhnillahi ta'ala will open up doors for other sisters to go and seek knowledge as well, because you will become a role model for them. So the sisters who are not married and don't have children, try your best to seek knowledge, try your best to give da'wah amongst the sisters, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses our sisters for this. Because the simple equation is this, that you teach a man and you're teaching one individual. But if you teach a sister, you educate a sister, you've actually educated a whole household. Because she is the one who is going to be raising our children. She is the one who is going to be educating them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Brother, go ahead. Our brother in the back, you can ask your question, inshallah. How is the Jamia with people with disabilities? Obviously, having a disability is quite difficult and quite challenging, but the university does try to accommodate them to the best of their ability. I had neighbors who, subhanallah, were coming from war-driven countries where they had lost limbs, were unable to walk. There was one brother who had to be, pushed in a wheelchair the whole time because he couldn't walk at all. Likewise, there was a brother in my Quran class, and this is, inshallah, I hope this is an inspiration for you. He was probably, one of the most confident people I've ever met in my life, subhanAllah. You'd shake his hand and he crushes it. And then he asks you, how are you doing today? And he was a very nice brother, mashallah, tabarakallah. But what I found really unique about this brother is that even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken his eyesight away, he was a hafiz of the Quran by the age of 14. You would hear him recite, and he was able to do like any reciter you wanted. Abu Bakr al-Shatri, Sa'd al-Ghamidi, Mishari Rashid, whatever you wanted, he was able to do it. And this is when you truly see the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never takes anything away from his slave except that he replaces it with something better. So my brother, if you have the aspiration to go to the University of Madinah, don't worry about the hindrances that will come your way. Put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take that first step and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you, inshallah. This is one of the beautiful things of our ummah, is that the true ummah does not discriminate based upon ethnicity, does not discriminate upon age, does not discriminate upon physical appearance. But rather, once you are part of this ummah, we love and care for one another. And this is what I truly saw at the Islamic University of Madinah, that there were brothers who were being challenged, and the brothers came together to help them and to support them. And this is purely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this help comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ways that we don't even imagine. And this is the promise of Allah, that whoever fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is conscious of Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always make a way out for him. So if you're aspiring to go, take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, take the first couple of steps, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will facilitate it for you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We'll take one last question and then we'll conclude, inshallah. Go ahead. Excellent, good question. So at the Islamic University of Madinah, there's two steps that most students have to take. The first step is the learning of the Arabic language, what they call Shu'bat al-Lugha or Mahad al-Lugha. And this program is generally devised for 2 years. So what will happen is, as soon as you get to Medina, you'll do a placement examination, and depending on how well or how poorly you do on your placement examination, that will decide how long you stay in the Arabic department. When I did my Arabic examination, keep in mind I had been studying Arabic for 2 years. I did not get past the second question that they asked me. I thought I went in knowing some Arabic. I didn't know anything at all. So I started off from the very beginning. And instead of 2 years, I actually ended up doing 3 years. And if you actually do the whole complete program, it actually prepares you not only to read Arabic, to write Arabic, to speak in Arabic, but the most important thing is that you start to think in Arabic. And that's one of the most important tools you'll learn. And that's something that they train you for in this Arabic department. Now, I also advise the brothers over here that a lot of the times we're shown these Medina books and we're told that, these are the books that you study at the Islamic University of Medina, the 3 famous Medina books. The reality is, these are just 3 of 24 books that you'll cover inside the Arabic department. There are about, 21 other books that you will cover. So that's just the beginning. And that's the first step that most students will take. The second step that the students will take is deciding what faculty they will go into. At the Islamic University of Madinah, they have 5 faculties. The first faculty is the faculty of the Arabic department. The second faculty is the faculty of Sharia. The third faculty is the faculty of Hadith. The fourth faculty is the faculty of Quran. And the fifth faculty is the faculty of Da'wah and Usuluddin. Now, in terms of the curriculum, 70% of the curriculum in each of these faculties is exactly the same. And it's only 30% that you actually specialize in. So in Sharia, we specialized in fiqh and in usul al-fiqh. In the College of Da'wah and Usuluddin, they specialize in Aqidah and Islamic history. In the faculty of Quran, they specialize in tafsir and in the different types of recitation of the Quran. In the faculty of Hadith, they specialize in Hadith terminology, which is mustalah, and the favorite subject in Birmingham, al-jarh wa ta'dil, that they specialize in criticizing and amending the narrators of Hadith. And then you move on to the Arabic language, they specialize in eloquence and in poetry. So these are the 5 major faculties where 70% of the curriculum is exactly the same, and it's only that 30% that people actually specialize in. And I would suggest that, brothers who go to the West, it only generally comes down to one of 2 faculties for them. Either the faculty of Da'wah and Usuluddin or the faculty of Sharia. I believe the other faculties, while they're noble and they have, good knowledge in them, they do not prepare a student to come back to the West. Because you'll see from experience that the vast majority of questions that you will get from people when you come back are either related to Aqidah or they're related to fiqh. Seldom will you get a question on the different recitations of the Quran. Seldom will you get asked about different narrators of Hadith. Seldom will you get asked an advanced Arabic question that you're not able to answer by studying in any of the other faculties. So I would advise that brothers who are aspiring to go, either focus on going to Sharia or either focus on going to Da'wah. And this should be the general case scenario unless you find yourself, abnormally talented in other fields, or you have an abnormal desire to specialize in other fields. If you have that, then please go ahead and into the other faculties. However, if you're still trying to find your way, then go to either to Da'wah or to Sharia, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And I think with that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll conclude. Jazakumullahu khairan, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
غرباء غرباء